Okay, I see that now.
Yeah, thank you. You might take a minute now and just silence your phones if you
One more time.
need to do that. Good evening. I am Lindy Kirkbride. I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for too many years. I can't tell you how many. No, it's been over 40 years that I've been a proud member of the League of Women Voters, and having served in the local level and as state president and as lobbyist at one point in time as well. But I'm glad to welcome you all. Welcome to all of you out in the audience. The League is all about being a part of the process. We are a nonpartisan organization. We're very political because we really believe that everybody should be involved in how our system works. And we promote voting all the time, and educating and engaging voters is really important. Protecting their rights is another big issue. In some states, that is more of a big deal, and through some laws that have been passed that are maybe not as friendly and to everybody in all levels of society. So and we also are working on reforming money in politics. That's another thing that League has been very active in. And we're a national organization, a state organization, and then we have local level groups around Wyoming as well. Been working with the state legislature for many years on good government issues, and we will continue to do that with our lobbyist, Marguerite Herman. I'm going to tell you that these forums are really important, even though we don't have a huge audience. They really are important because they will be posted on our website, and people do look at that. And it's for those of you in the audience, you can see where it is at Wyoming, LWV.org, and there will be questions that the candidates will be answering, and they will be posted on that as well. It's just, not too much longer do we have, a little over a month, about 6 weeks till voting. So, and early voting has already started. So we want to make sure that people know where to get information, and that you need to get you candidates, if you haven't gotten your questions in already, please have them in by this Friday, October 3rd, to Sue Risky. You have her email, I believe, because you're all here. And there will be publicity coming out because we will do a gubernatorial and superintendent forum. And it's on October 23rd at 5:30 in this room. So please join us for that. That's sure to be interesting. It was before in the primary, and we're excited that the candidates have agreed to meet again. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator tonight, and that is also a former League president. And are you still? Maybe you're still. No, you're not. Yeah. Okay. And this is Jan Cartwright. I will introduce Jan Cartwright. She is the executive director of the Wyoming Primary Care Association, working on health care for all around the state. So take it over, Jan.
Thanks for the introduction, Lindy. Good evening. I want to tell you that all the candidates running for seats in Laramie County were invited to tonight's forum. The League does regret that some of the candidates couldn't attend due to scheduling, and specifically Mr. Rogeski wanted us to mention that he is not able to attend tonight, and he sends his regrets because he is dealing with some health issues. So we regret that he can't be here, as well as other candidates. However, I am pleased to be joined tonight in the first round by the gentleman sitting here, and you all will have a chance to introduce yourselves in just a couple of minutes. Specifically, you'll have 2 minutes to introduce yourself and why you're running for the seat in the Wyoming legislature. And then we have a series of questions that we've already submitted to you all, and I will be asking those in a random order. Each person will have a minute and a half to respond. And then at the end, if time allows, we'll take some questions from the audience here in the County Commission chambers. And at that point, that would be another minute and a half answer. At the end, about 45 minutes into the conversation, we will have give each of you 2 minutes to wrap up and give a closing statement so that you have the chance to reintroduce your ideas at the end. So just thanks again for being here. I also want to mention that this forum is being live streamed tonight. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. And I think your timer's over here, but be watching for her because she'll make sure that you know where you are in your time. And then also, as Lindy said, we do and are proud to put together a voter's guide that will be available later, and we appreciate all of you that have already submitted the answers to the questions in written form. So let's go ahead and start with you, Mr. Datus. Would you like to spend 2 minutes telling us about yourself?
Can you hear me all right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Gary Datus, House 42, Democrat. The reason I'm running for the legislature is, first of all, I'd like to commend the current members of the legislature on the job they've done. I don't have any pie-in-the-sky ideas about how one person can come in and change everything, because that's just not going to happen. But at the same time, I think that we have some very erstwhile people that are working very hard for the citizens of Wyoming. I feel very strongly about 3 things. Do you want me to touch on those now?
If you'd like to, that's fine. This is
okay.
your time.
Number 1 obviously would be health care. That's the top of my list. The second one would be the social services issue and everything that we're dealing with there, and then also infrastructure. And that would prioritize, certainly, my actions in the legislature. I fully intend on being elected to the legislature. I'm not just a candidate out there just to have my name on the ballot. I will be actively campaigning, and I do have the endorsements of several organizations. Won't mention them now, and that for me is a brief summation.
Thank you.
Anything personal?
If you'd like, if there's time.
Okay. Well, I've been married 45 years. We have 1 son that's career Air Force, and we have a daughter-in-law, obviously, and then 4 granddaughters. And our house, they spend the summers with us. And, I always dreamed when I was 18 or 19 about living in a sorority house, but I didn't really anticipate it happening when I'm 70 years old. So you get up about, 5:30 in the morning, or else you stand in line for a bathroom, I can tell you that. But that's just a brief reflection on my personal life. Thank you.
Mr. Pappas.
Okay, great. Thank you for inviting us to be here. My name is Stephan Pappas. I was born and raised here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I've been here all my life. I went to East High School, graduated in '69. Then I went to the University of Wyoming for 3 years, but was pursuing architecture, and they do not have a degree in architecture there. So I went to the transferred to University of New Mexico, and I got a degree in fine arts in architecture, and then went on to Arizona State University and got my professional degree in architecture. After my education, came back to Cheyenne, and after a couple of years working for another architectural firm, I opened my own business, along with my partner, my father, and we've been in business ever since. My father retired about 20 years ago, and I've been running the business on my own since then. In 1985, I also joined I enlisted in the United States Air Force. I shortly after became an officer in the Wyoming Military Department, and put in almost 24 years, just retiring about 5 years ago, as the Assistant Adjutant General for the Wyoming Air National Guard in the rank of Brigadier General. My first thoughts of serving in the legislature came about 8 to 9 years ago, as I was working on some of the boards and commissions, and also interfacing with legislators in the legislature. And so I have had a passion all my life for serving, and so since after leaving my public service in the state in the Wyoming Military Department, it's my intention to continue public service in the legislature.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron, please.
Thank you. Again, as the gentlemen have said, thank you for the opportunity of allowing us to come here and meet everyone and speak to everyone today. And as you said, I think it's very important, although there are not as many people in the audience, and it is an important forum for us to not only get to know us, but us to get to know you. And I think as a public servant, that's the most important thing, is to know who you're going to represent. Again, my name is Damien Cameron. I've lived here almost 20 years. A good friend of mine said, well, Damien, you might be from South Carolina, but you got to Wyoming as quick as you could. And that's a lot of truth to that. I love this state. I love everything about it. It's been wonderful for me. I've had wonderful opportunities here. I'm an attorney here in Cheyenne. Went to the University of Wyoming, got my undergraduate in American Studies. Did a lot of historic preservation work while I was in my undergraduate. I went to law school here after that. Graduated 10 years ago, and wow, has it been that long? And I opened up my own law practice, and in the meantime, I've opened up with the Morris House Bistro, which is here in Cheyenne on Warren. I've always had a very strong sense of public service, and not only just separating that out of my life, but incorporating that into my life. And I do that, I believe, with everything that I do, from my law occupation to my abilities from the Morris House to help civic organizations and nonprofits. I believe that I am a very strong candidate for the position, and I intend to win this position, because I believe that I am the person that needs to represent the people of my district. I work with them not only in a legal capacity, but I work with them in other capacities as well, as fundraising and everything that I just mentioned. I'm really proud of being where I'm at, and I'm proud of my constituency, and I believe that I am the one that can make these things happen. And we've got some serious problems right now in Wyoming, and everything is not all right. And I want to ensure that I'm there, because I have some ideas that I think that can make Wyoming a better place for everyone to live, especially my constituency. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Jen. I'd first like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum debate. It's exciting to get together and let us be able to express some of our ideas and what's going on. My name is Dave Zwanitzer, and I'm currently serving as the incumbent in House District 9. That's the area that Mike and I are going to be competing with out in the Dildine, Anderson, and Buffalo Ridge Elementary area. Married to my wife, Kim, who happens to be in the audience for quite a few years. Have a son, Dan, and a son, Ty, and two grandsons, Ty and let me get their names, Eli and got to think about them, Eli and Aiden, that are living in my district, and happy to have them in my district. And so as I look to the future of what I want to do and what the legislature is all about, I always look out towards those grandkids and think about the great-grandkids and the decisions that any of us that are going to make here, if we're lucky enough to get in to the next session, how important it is that we look at that generation, not our generation. As you know, Wyoming has been rated at the moment the number 2 best-run state in the country. There's a reason for that. We have great legislators. We have great people on both sides of the aisle. We're able to get along. We're able to make decisions, and we want to keep that going. I was born in Holton, Kansas, moved out with my family when I was 3, so for all practical purposes, I feel myself a native of Cheyenne. I served as an auctioneer for several years at Western Auction. We had a furniture store, Z's Home Furnishings. In the old days, we had a furniture store called Z's Home Furnishings. So looking forward to getting back in the legislature again. I was fortunate enough to bring some bills to the state, the lottery bill and some vendor compensation bills, and there's a lot more bills on the horizon that we would like to address.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland.
Well, thank you. My name is Mike Weiland. And first of all, I'd like to thank, like everybody said here, the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I think it's really important to get as much information about all of the candidates as possible before voting. And I also want to extend my thanks and appreciation for all of us here running for office and the current legislators, and this includes Dave, which I think he's represented District 9 well for many years. And I am running for the House of Representatives in District 9 as a Democrat. This is my first time running for public office. I've lived in Cheyenne for over 28 years now and love the city and Wyoming, and especially the people that live here. I have 2 grown children, Melissa and Chris. They now live out of state, but I think they benefited quite a bit from growing up in Cheyenne, in Wyoming. I retired from my career as a meteorologist this past January, and so my background, I believe, is in science and logic and fact-based, thinking. I feel it's very important to give back to the community and state that has been so good to me and my family, and I've tried to do so in my whole and adult life by being involved in many volunteer activities and organizations. And so after I retired, I figured this was a good way to help out some more. So that's the reason I'm running for the House of Representatives. And I want to do what I can to make this an even better state for the citizens to live and work. There are many people in need, and many people are struggling in the state. And I also am running to help those citizens. There's much that we can do to improve our quality of life, keep our economy strong, environment clean, and work on making our state's education system even better. I think we have great potential here in Wyoming, and I'm running because I want to see that potential realized. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for the great introductions. Mr. Pappas, we're going to start with you, and I'd like you to pull your mic just a little closer, if you would, please, so that we can hear you a little bit better.
Damien filled me in here.
Yeah, I filled him in on that. I saw some people leaning. I'm like,
Yeah. So, can you hear me okay now?
That's better.
Better?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, gotcha.
What do you feel is the most important issue facing the state of Wyoming, and how would you address it?
Well, it's a little hard-pressed to find the most important issue, but since you asked me, I do believe economy, education, and healthcare are the 3 most important issues, but I'll address the economy since you wanted a single issue. I believe we need to be very supportive of our current extractive industries, including mining of coal, uranium, and trona, and also the extraction of oil and gas. I think it's very, very important to continue those industries and to find ways to support them. But at the same time, I think we should be the energy state. And so I think we ought to be looking at all the other sources and energies, wind, solar, even geothermal, to make them economically viable. They need to be in our portfolio. I do believe that technology is the key to all of these industries, whether it be clean coal technologies or the newer technologies in wind and solar. So I believe that the School of Energy Resources is a key important part to be a partner with industry, to be able to produce the correct technologies to enhance our industry so that we become the energy state.
Mr. Cameron, the same question. What do you feel is the most important issue facing the state of Wyoming, and how would you address it?
well, I believe, as again, I think most candidates will probably say, it's really, really hard to come up with one issue that is the most important, because I think that they all really are. But we got to understand where they start, and where they start is fiscally, of course. And our income streams are very important to us, and I think our fiscal resources deserve responsible fiscal management. And what I'm seeing today is I don't think that we are managing our fiscal portfolios and our investments the way that we need to be doing that. I believe that we have a responsibility to our people of Wyoming, because they're the people who are paying this. So they're the people who are paying taxes. We have industries that are paying us to make this place a better place for all of us and not just specific groups of people. I believe that we have infrastructure issues that we should face. And when I say infrastructure issues, that I think encompasses a lot of different things. The infrastructure, I mean, we have a social infrastructure and we have physical infrastructure. And those might mean roads and sewers and things that we can use to bring and to diversify our economy, bring industry, but we also need to look at our social infrastructure, which are our people. Those are our greatest resources, and when we forget those or leave those behind to try to appease a different group, I believe that we're not going to be successful in Wyoming.
Thank you. Representative Zwinitzer, what do you feel is the most important issue facing the state, and how would you address it?
Well, thank you. I would have to concur with my two Senate candidates that I think the number one thing that we have to look at is our budget and maintaining our budget. But it's such a dry topic. But that is the number one that we need to look at. And anytime we overlook that, we're not looking at what we're doing. But a couple of the other issues that I would like to talk about, one is the education issue. We need to get that put back into place, and I think we have the workings of getting that put back into place. And then the third would be, and the one I guess I would like to really reference tonight, would be about the healthcare system. Wyoming's in a unique position. There's a lot of guns firing on both sides about what we do about our healthcare system. We have held out up to this point, and I think wisely so. But I think this is the term that we need to look at what we can do. But it's very important, from my standpoint, that we do it on our terms. And we do it what will benefit our people, and that we have a chance to have a string to pull us out of that if we need to. So we want to make sure we don't get into something we can't get out of, because the same time the government is saying they're going to fund our expansion, on this other side of the page is the same time that they said that we have sequestration and we can't keep our national parks open and we can't even have White House tours because we have no money. So we have an interesting problem there.
Thank you, Representative Zwanitzer. Mr. Weiland, same question. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I would have to agree with everybody else up here that has responded so far. It's hard to just limit the discussion just to one of the main issues facing the state. But since that was the question asked, I guess I'll try to address that. My top three, I'll just three, then I'll go on to my main one. I think education, economy, and economic diversity, and those are my top two. So I will talk right now just about diversifying the economy. I think that the coal and mineral industry is very important. It'll continue to be important to the state, but I think we have to look towards the future and look to see ways we can bring in different companies, better jobs into the state, and that's going to take approach from several different angles. And that would include education, both at the K-12 and community college level, to make sure that our students are able to compete globally and get those jobs that might come here. Also, that would include improving the infrastructure, both broadband internet, and roads to make the businesses more likely to come. And also, I think looking more into renewable energy, and that's been shown to help economies grow in other places. So I think we can kind of take that shift that way. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiland. Mr. Datus, same question.
I think one of our most important resources in the state of Wyoming would be our young people. And I feel that they are being left behind, especially in the area of vocational education. We have seen the elimination of vocational ed programs throughout the state in various high schools over the last 8 or 10 years. I personally worked as a high school principal for 27 years, so I know whereof I speak. My last 9 years were at Triumph High School, and we had young people that were more than willing to learn a trade, but we didn't have anything available for them. LCCC, of course, was right down the road from us, but transportation was an issue. So that would be my number one priority as far as the legislature is concerned, and that would be to do whatever we can to enhance the relationship not only between high schools, but also between the schools, the high schools, and also the community colleges. I think that's very important, and that would be my number one priority right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the next question, and we'll start with Mr. Cameron. Members of the legislature have widely diverse constituent interests and positions. How important is it to learn about views and interests that differ from your own? How important is it to compromise and reach consensus in the legislature?
Well, being that that's, of course, a two-part question, and the answer to that is yes, it's highly important. to understand different points of views and positions of people that may not agree with you. You have understanding that you have to represent them is a not only a responsibility, but I believe it is absolutely it's a trait that you have to have, and you have to be able to listen. And being able to do that means, talking to people who are in situations maybe different than your own. We all, I think, have certain agendas that we like to see. There, of course, we have issues that we like to see, but one doesn't diminish the other. And certainly, we have a population that is diverse. So what matters most to voter or constituent X may not be the same thing that is important to constituent Y. And the important thing for us to be able to do is be able to talk to both of them, understand where they're coming from, because that's the only way that you can be a true representative. I mean, to just have a few topics and you want to change policy, you want to do this or that in the legislature, that's fine and good. But unless you're listening to the people and listening to what their concerns are, even if they are not yours, is essential in being a good and effective representative for the people of Wyoming.
Thank you. Representative Zwanitzer, do you want me to repeat that question?
No, I think I caught the question. It's very important to listen to all your constituents and see what all their views are, but make no mistake, you're not going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. You have to, in my opinion, legislate based on some of your personal feelings and also based on what you feel is best for the majority of the constituents in your district and or the state of Wyoming. Obviously, there are some issues that people like to get on a bandwagon to change something that shouldn't be changed. And it's up to you to be that guy that puts your neck out on that chopping block. But as long as you've heard the issues on both sides, know everyone's concerns, I think you can make that educated decision. And hopefully, we kind of like to use that old 80% rule where you're able to, please 80% of the people 80% of the time. Having said that, I think all of us would understand if we've been in any type of political situation that doesn't always happen. So, but to know both sides of the story and then firm up your opinion of that particular issue, extremely important, and then you just have to go forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland, same question.
Okay. I think the short answer to both those, that two-part question, is both very important. Like Damien was mentioning, everybody has their own opinions, ideas, and they're all valid. And when you go out and talk to the various people, various constituents, there's great ideas that come out of that. And I think that can be a strength. We can use and learn from all of those ideas and, try to get something that really works on different issues. So I would actively, go out and get different opinions than my own, because I could be way off in certain things. And as far as consensus and compromise in legislature, again, I think that's very important, and I believe that's how you get things done. I think it's very important to be a team player and to work together with everybody. You might have to give and take some, but that's the way that things get done. So,
thank you. Mr. Davis, same question.
Well, we obviously are would be elected to represent our constituency. It's important to know what the people are thinking, but more importantly, it's to know why they're thinking in that particular way. And what I would suggest is that we need to better educate our voters. And also we need to do everything we can to ensure that everybody that is eligible to vote is registered to vote. And I don't know, the last figures I saw were like, I think 49% or something like that of eligible voters are actually registered to vote. And I think that's an absolute shame. It's a crime. Voting is a real privilege. It's something that, we've paid dearly for over the years, and I think that's something that absolutely should happen. So I think as far as the constituency is concerned, those people that are eligible to vote should vote. They also should be ambassadors for those people that are eligible to vote that have not registered to vote, and along those lines, do everything they can to encourage that. As far as disagreement and working across the aisle and everything, I agree with that. I mean, you have to do that. You have to have compromise. That's a basic premise of democracy. If you don't have that, then you're going to be kind of stuck in the mud. I think it was Will Rogers that said with FDR, he said, when Congress would take a look at a bill, he said they'd just wave at it as it passed by, as opposed to stopping it, and that was during the time that, we were in a depression and one thing and another. So,
Thank you. Mr. Pappas, same question.
Okay, thank you. I think it's crucial, as everybody agrees, to understand the views and the interests and the positions and actually really the mindset of those that have differing opinions than yours. It's a very healthy exchange because the idea is all about consensus and compromise. So I believe it's important to understand everybody's issues. I really think that in my business in architecture, I manage many teams, and the only way we get anything done is through consensus and building and collaborating. And so very important, and I plan to bring those skills into the legislature with me. I think that it's key to having great minds work together, because I think a consensus will bring a better solution than any one single idea. So I'm a big believer in consensus and collaborating and compromise.
Thank you. Representative Swinitzer, the legislature uses budget and statutes to manage executive agency programs. Do you support this intervention? One example is a budget footnote to restrict the ability of the State Board of Education to review science standards. Would you support repeal of that footnote?
Forgot to turn my mic on. Thank you for that question. It's the issue that came before the legislature, and thinking back on it, it almost teeters upon being unconstitutional what the legislature did. Our Constitution says that we're supposed to provide the best education we can for our kids. And what we've done, I think, by passing that amendment was limit that. We limited the discussion. We had some of our members go to meetings and say, hey, guys, stop. You cannot even discuss that. So, no, the job of the legislature is not to micromanage. The job of the legislature is to oversee and to help agencies and to oversee them, but not to go in and micromanage. And I think we did a disservice, and yes, that is one that we should not have done.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland, what are your thoughts on this question?
Thank you. I believe the legislature, should set the framework and create a positive environment to address issues such as energy in this case. And that would include, a vision for the state in regards to energy in this case, and that should be developed by the legislature working with the energy industry and the university. Once that vision is created, then the energy industry should be encouraged to reach their goals, to attain their goals within that vision, and then the university would assist energy industry in the research for the energy industry itself.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, same question.
I can't imagine why the State Board of Education would not be allowed to look at science standards. That makes no sense at all. The only thing I could say would be that if anybody is familiar with core curriculum, they know it addresses two issues, language arts and math. And science is one issue right now that's outside of that realm. And that, I don't know if that was a driving force behind it or not. But to limit the legislative, not legislative, but the state board in terms of their reviewing science standards, no, I would definitely support an amendment to make sure that that did not happen again.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas.
Yeah, first off, yes, I would work to repeal the footnote. I believe that such issues like this need to be debated in the legislature, and that legislating via footnote is a terrible practice, and there's way too much of it in the Wyoming state budget process. I think that it's gotten worse in every session. The number of footnotes is ridiculous. Footnotes need to be an explanatory process, not a legislative process. So I believe we need to change the process by which footnotes are applied to the budget, and that proper debate on issues such as the science standards need to have their place on the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron.
Yes, ma'am. The answer is absolutely. And then maybe I should just stop there, but I'm not. Agreeing, I mean, in seeing what Mr. Zwanitzer says and saying that it teeters on the constitutionality of the issue, I disagree. I don't think it teeters. I think it falls off. What we've done is disenfranchise an entire population here to open up a discourse and discussion about what's important to us. If we as a citizenry and the population of Wyoming start accepting that kind of legislation and allow our legislators to legislate that way, we're in a heck of a lot of trouble. I mean, this is not transparent. It is behind closed doors. It is a very limited amount of people who have those discussions, and that's not at all Wyoming. We want to make that open to everyone. We need to have discussions on things like that. We're talking about education. If we're going to do something like that in footnotes and we talk about limiting science standards, what's next? It's a very slippery slope, and I'm absolutely passionate about that because that is not the intention of our Constitution. It's not the intention of our voters who vote us in to represent them, and it certainly will not be my intention.
Thank you. What are the? This one is to you, Mr. Weiland. What are the proper relationships and responsibilities among the legislature, the energy industry, and the University of Wyoming?
I have to apologize there. I answered that question in the one before. So I guess I apologize. I was going down the list here, so I'm sorry. I guess I can go over that again here. Like I said before, the legislature, I believe, should set the framework and create a positive environment, to address issues such as energy, and also develop a vision for the state in regards to energy. And that would be working with the energy industry and the university as well. Once that vision is created, then the energy industry should be encouraged to reach their goals within that vision, and UW would then assist in any type of research, hopefully renewable type energy research for the energy industry.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, same question.
My turn?
Yes. Do you want me to read the question again?
No, I understand it. I think Mr. Pappas hit on something that was very, very important when he talked about technology. I think technology is going to play a very vital role in terms of our future as far as energy is concerned. I, certainly do not support, uncontrolled expansion in terms of energy, but at the same time, we have to recognize the fact this is one of our primary sources of revenue, and not only that, but also it's beneficial to the entire populace of the United States. And we have a tremendous number of natural resources here. There's no question about that. But if anybody's done any research on this, coal gasification is something that I've not heard about in the last couple of years, and this is a process that is just absolutely phenomenal in terms of what can be done technologically to go ahead and power steam turbines with this with coal. And I think that's what we need to take a look at. And I think the infrastructure also in the state of Wyoming, right now we need some control over what is going on in terms of the oil exploration companies, and I'm not even going to get into fracking because I've got very strong personal feelings about that. But at the same time, we're sitting on top of the Oglala Aquifer, and we do not want to pollute that because that would be tantamount to putting a gun to our head.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas.
Yeah, I believe the relationship, the bond between the University of Wyoming, the legislature, and industry has to be very, very strong. I really see it as a symbiotic relationship. In the animal and plant and insect world, those creatures that are symbiotic, help each other, and so each other comes out better. It's no different than with the university, UW, the industry, and the legislature. When UW turns out great, when legislature funds great teachers and turns out good students, UW takes those students and puts them in an industry. Industry does well. When industry does well, we have good jobs. We have high-paying jobs, and we have people who pay taxes. And so all of that then turns around and comes back to the state as higher taxes and benefits. So it's a perfect cycle. So everyone is working for each other and to the benefit of each other. So I see it as a very symbiotic relationship, and we need to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Cameron.
I read that question over and over again, and I tried to decipher what I thought that it actually meant, and I think it means a few different things. And why is it important that there is a relationship? First of all, you have to look at what it is, and these are three things that they should have a certain amount of autonomy. And while I agree that we have to work together, we need to form, as the legislature needs to have a healthy partnership with the University of Wyoming, which has a healthy partnership with the energy industry, because one could not exist without the other one. But knowing our roles and being responsible to legislate in those roles is what we need to worry about. We need to give the tools to these, like to the University of Wyoming, or to the energy industry, in order to effectuate the kind of vision that we as a legislative body in Wyoming have as our vision of what Wyoming is going to be, not only today, but not only into our posterity. We see these things as very distinct things. Sometimes we see them as friends, and sometimes we see them as enemies, but we have to understand and define it. We have to say, okay, we're going to say it's okay to teach these kinds of things at the university. We have to say with the energy company, we need you here. We know that we need you here, so we need to give them the tools to be here. And we also have a responsibility to our other, our other resources or social social infrastructure is what I like to call it, to be responsible and to hold both or anyone accountable for what decisions they make. That's the role of our legislature.
Thank you. Representative Swinitzer.
Thank you. It's always interesting going last, so I want to say ditto. That's what we do in committee meetings with what everybody said. So the key word is that we work in harmony. Wyoming does have a unique situation in the fact that we only have one university. So we do not have competition in our universities. And the education part of it is very essential. So that's why we have a School of Energy that's kind of unique to the state, that we're putting money as a legislature into that program and other programs like that to help develop the education and the workforce out in the energy fields. And of course, then the energy fields bring back the money to the legislature, which we fund to the university. And so the proper relationship, and as I read that question, I saw a 6-part scenario going on, but harmony is the main thing, and I think we all have to know our place, and our place is that we legislate, we don't micromanage, we let the industry do, and as I mentioned earlier, the most important thing is that we look down 20, 30, 40 years. Energy is not going to last forever. We have to keep that in mind. We hope that it'll last for a long time, but if it doesn't, we got to make sure that we keep money in savings so we can keep this nice harmony going.
Thank you. And now for the last question, we have a question from the audience. So we'll go ahead and ask this one. We will start this time with you, Mr. Datus. How important is early childhood education?
It's absolutely critical. Kindergarten readiness is, I think it's one of the most important aspects of the entire educational process. You have young people that are coming into kindergarten that have tremendous differences in terms of what their preparation is. It makes it very, very difficult for a classroom instructor to try and get a handle on that when you've got, I think the ratio now is 18, if I'm not mistaken, that is the maximum class size. But at the same time, it's very difficult unless everybody is at more or less the same level. And I'm not saying everybody should be absolutely equal. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying that kindergarten readiness is extremely important, and we should have pre-kindergarten programs to prepare these young people for their first days of school, because that is going to be a lasting impression in terms of what's going to happen to them during their entire educational career.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas?
You won't get any complaint from me. It is critical, early education in our state. If we don't provide adequate early education for our young folks in the state of Wyoming, we'll be behind everyone, not only behind other states, but behind the world. Folks are educating their children young, and in order to stay at a competitive rate, we need to make sure that our kids get the proper education. I've debated this a lot with my son-in-law, who was the early educator coordinator for the Department of Ed until he moved on. But there are very, very important programs out there that are available. The key is to make sure that they get into the correct hands to those instructors that are teaching them. We need to make sure that the curriculums that are available can be used by those folks that are in early education. So we need to enable them by providing resources. So crucial and very important aspect of proper education. Starts the kids off properly, and their education will be more than likely a success if we start early.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Pappas. I just want to take a second to let the audience know that we do have a person with cards here. If somebody has, I think we have time for one more question, and it looks like we have it. Okay, 2 more questions. All right. Okay, so Mr. Cameron, back to the question at hand. How important is early childhood education?
Well, I think, again, I think crucial is a good word that Mr. Pappas and others will probably use when you talk about early childhood education. I don't necessarily see early childhood education as something that only starts with a resource or a state program. Education starts with, after you're born. We need to be looking at, what is going on in our homes, what is going on in our communities with our, with the different sections of our communities. Why are we producing children? Why are we having children coming into our school districts in K1, 2, second grade that don't have the skills that they need at that point in time? We can't just say that it's our job as your teacher at Alta Vista at Alta Vista Elementary School to make sure that that child had everything beforehand. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we say, okay, we're seeing this trend. How can we help? What can we do? And it's not necessarily through opening a school or opening a building that says bring your child here for 4 hours a day or 5 hours a day. It's encouraging parents to get more educated and helping them, because that's where it starts. We need to hold people responsible. We need to hold families and our neighbors and our entire community responsible for educating our children. Early education is not simply a program. It's a way of life. And we have to understand how important that is, because when we get children who are not educated at an early age, we're going to get children who are uneducated at an older age. And that's simply not what we need in Wyoming. Thank you.
Representative Zwanitzer.
Same question. I'm definitely a strong supporter, and I'd just like to give a quick example. Last year I had a kindergarten. Now this year he's a first grader, so we don't want to be confused about that. But I think a real important thing happened toward the end of the year. He came home to his mom and said, "Mom, I need to learn," this was after school, "I need to learn how to add 2 columns. I understand how to add 1 column. I understand the 2 plus 3, the 8 plus 1. But I don't understand the 21 plus 32. And can you go get me a book?" So what this early education has done has just blossomed these kids' minds. And I think I'll just pass the microphone, and I think that pretty much answers it for you.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland, same question.
Well, thank you. Like Representative Zwanitzer said earlier, ditto on this. It's critical to have early childhood education. I think that we need to put some resources into it, so most schools have that available to students. But like Mr. Cameron said as well, it starts earlier. It starts after the child's born. So we need to approach it from 2 different aspects. Studies have shown just on the school part of it, having the pre-kindergarten has raised the students' learning and love of learning all the way throughout their whole life. And so it is crucial, but I do think that we need to start earlier and encouraging somehow encouraging parents to be more involved, be more responsible in their child's education.
Thank you. So we did get some questions up. I think you probably saw 3 cards come up, but they are very related. And so, Mr. Pappas, we're going to start with you. The primary question is, how do you view the gender wage gap? And then secondary to that, if you choose to answer it, is what are your thoughts on raising the state's minimum wage?
There is truly a gender wage gap in Wyoming. We tend to have industries that are male related. That's one big problem, that we have males going into the energy sector more frequently than females do. Also, it's unfair probably, but it is a reality that women who go into the workforce and then leave the workforce to have children, once they get back into the workforce, they tend to come back at a lower rate, behind perhaps the seniority of a senior male, and it's unfortunate that happens, but I think that's a reality. And so, and then there is probably some discrimination somewhere, and that is uncondoned. I don't condone any types of discrimination against women who work in the same position as a male and have the same seniority. I have no tolerance for those differences. But I think all 3 of those help to make Wyoming one of the states that have that large gender gap. And I don't think I have time to answer your second question.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Cameron, same question. How do you view the gender wage gap?
Well, how do I view it? It's known that it's there, and it's insulting. It should be insulting to a huge group of people. You're talking about, we're not talking about a few cents here and there. We're talking about 63 to 65 cents on the dollar that men earn over women. And I don't believe that a family or a woman has to choose that, I might have to raise a family, but then when I get back in the workforce, I'm not as deserving as someone else or as a male counterpart. And we're not talking about seniority necessarily in companies. I disagree with that. We're talking about a system that is so ingrained in genderizing our workforce that we allow that to happen. I think it's grotesque, and I think that anybody that believes it's okay and that it can't be changed and we shouldn't even look at it and we shouldn't do something about it doesn't deserve to be in our legislature. We are a state of equality, and we need to focus on that, and we need to focus on those kinds of issues. We need to say, look, we're not going to take that. We're going to do things like, again, I think increasing our minimum wage. When we increase our minimum wage, we're giving people who need the money. And we're taking resources that we were giving them from the state and giving it back to our communities. Because once these people can earn a living, and I'm talking women specifically, maybe single mothers who can earn a better living and know that they don't have to be subjected to this wage gap, and they know that they can feed their families, I think that is a better way to legislate and to do business.
Thank you. Representative Swanitzer.
Thank you. Yes, the state of Wyoming needs to work on the gender gap as far as wages go. I think a job should be described based on what its abilities are, and there will be some jobs that you'll find there'll be a higher percentage of the female population that apply for those jobs, and there'll be some jobs where the male population, because obviously in Wyoming there are some jobs that are just tailored more towards the physical beings, and a lot of females are physical beings, and then there's others towards the other side. So I think where it starts at is the job description. You got to get the job description down, you got to give the wage for it, and that's what it is. And you started at a certain salary, and if you're there 4 years, then you get the automatic raise, no matter which gender you are. As far as the minimum wage, I would not be a fan of raising the minimum wage. Again, as I look out 20 years, everything is cyclic, and as soon as you increase the minimum wage, then all of a sudden the price of your fast food goes up because you got to cover that wage, and it all comes back, and it's a constant cycle. So I would be a no on raising the minimum wage at the moment.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland.
Thank you. There is, as mentioned, there is a big gender wage gap in the state, and it's just a shame. I think one of the ways, part of it's like Representative Zwaniter mentioned, is that it's the type of jobs that we have in the state. So I think if we are able to work on creating different types of jobs, diversifying the economy, more high-tech jobs and stuff that would allow women to get that higher pay equal to men, I think that would be very important. But it is something we need to work on. And as far as the minimum wage goes, I think it's important to raise the minimum wage. I think that would help families and those people in need make a living, and that goes back into the community. I think other places where they've done it, it's been raised over the years. There's been some increase in prices, but I think overall it's been a benefit. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, same question.
Well, the gender equality issue is kind of interesting in terms of coming up in front of the League of Women Voters. Obviously, I concur with the gentleman in terms of, we need equal pay for equal work. There's no question about that. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Zwanitzer. Minimum wage should be raised. I don't know if people are aware of this, but a lot of our young people that are working, and even our adults that are working in restaurants or service stations or whatever it happens to be, part of their minimum wage consists of tips. And the tips are factored in to whatever the minimum wage happens to be. And that has to be broken down then in terms of bus boys, anybody that like a receptionist at the front desk, and so on and so forth. So, if we had a minimum wage of whatever it happens to be, let's say $9 an hour, and they were honestly paid $9 an hour, then that would make sense to me. But right now, that is not the way it works. I can guarantee you that. And I'm not saying that's the issue in all situations. But I'm telling you, the tips and things that are factored into that is totally unfair.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas. Oh, we started with you.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think at this point we will give you each 2 minutes to do your closing statements. And we will start with you, Mr. Cameron.
I guess in closing, I'd like to, I think I've answered the questions that I wanted to answer, but I also wanted to maybe continue a little bit on that. What are the issues that are important to you, the issues important to me? We need to look at the issues that are important to our society and to our population. And, saying that, oh, well, it's just something that needs to be fixed, and, oh, yeah, we can just fix that, and that's a cop-out. And you deserve better than a cop-out from your legislators. You need somebody who's willing to roll up their sleeves, get in there, do the work that they can do. Minimum wage issue, I'm not assuming anybody's age on this panel, but I think maybe I'm a little bit younger. And I remember what it was like working for minimum wage. I see people in my restaurant. I see people there. I, as a business owner, as an owner of 2 businesses, my partner and I ensure that our people are well paid to the extent that not only do we offer them salaries that are well above, wages that are well above minimum wage, that are common minimum wage jobs in the industry. But we also provide 100% of their health care. Why? Is it because I have to? No, it's because I think I should. And it's because that's the conscience that I have, not only as an employer, but as a human being to that person. Because the money's, even if you're looking at like a $10 an hour wage for that person, and they have a child, or they have 2 children, that's a hardly a living income. I don't live on minimum wage. I don't know how anyone else does. I know how much money I make, and I don't understand how some of our families in Wyoming make it. And I think our job, and what my job will be as a representative of not only my district but the entire state of Wyoming, is to work for them, because I've worked for them for the 20 years I've been in Wyoming, and I'm proud to have done that. And I will continue to do that throughout my public service.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Sure.
Representative Zwanitzer, your 2-minute closing.
Well, thank you. Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters. And I'd like to say that I have been in the legislature for 4 years. I'm currently serving as the chairman of the Highway, Transportation, and Military Affairs Committee. And in my way up to that position, I've served on the Education Committee, the Revenue Committee, the Minerals Committee. So I have a good view, and I can tell you it takes a couple of years to be in the legislature to understand what's going on. And at least on the House side, we lose about a fourth to a third of our membership every year, or every term, every session. So I think it's important to keep some of our senior legislators in there. Especially when it comes to Laramie County. We're one of the counties that are looking for growth. I can assure you not every county in the state is looking for growth. Some of them want to be left alone and they want to just stay back in their community as it was 50 or 100 years ago. And so I feel like I've played an important part in bringing like the data storage centers to the city of Cheyenne, which helps bring in the technology jobs. I think those are important. Those are what's going to diversify our economy, and whoever gets in, it is important to have a diversified economy. And the other one thing I'd like to say in closing, I think the main thing that I'm worried is about that we get good representation for House District 9, no matter who gets elected. And I know that I have talked extensively with my opponent, Mike Weiland, and I'd like to think that either one of us that gets elected to this position will represent our constituents very well, that we'll both put our best effort into it. And with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Mike.
Thank you. Mr. Weiland, your
Okay.
2-minute closing.
Well, thank you, Dave, and I feel the same way, so appreciate that. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum once again, and I hope that everybody gets out and votes either on or before November 4th. We have many issues facing the state, as we've talked about, and many of them have not had proper discussion, I don't believe. And I would like to get those discussions going on things like renewable energy, funding for roads, infrastructure, possible use of the rainy day money that we have stored away. I feel the legislature needs to focus on the people in the state and making sure that those that need assistance are receiving it. And that includes those that don't have health insurance, disabled, perhaps state employees who haven't had adequate raises in a while, workers in hazardous jobs. And I don't have any ties to any special interests or any agendas. I'm running to help ensure that people in the state can reach their potential with quality jobs and quality education and quality of life that's second to none. If I'm lucky enough to get elected, I'll bring positive energy, be a team player, and hard work to the state and for the people in the state and District 9. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Datis.
I'd like to return once again very briefly to the vocational education aspect of what I said. I think it's very important. I think one of our most important resources in the state of Wyoming would be our young people. And these young people are not all college bound, but they do need skill sets that will enable them to go out and provide a decent job or a decent wage, working reasonable hours and doing a reasonable job. And I certainly commend all restaurateurs on their fairness in terms of their employment. I did qualify my remarks and say not everyone does that. But
I didn't take it personally.
But I think the vocational education aspect is very, very important. And I would personally do everything I could to ensure that there were some qualifications, especially with that Hathaway scholarship, that could basically encompass some of those vocational education students more so than what they're encompassed right now. So that would be one of my main priorities. Once again, I think our young people are absolutely critical, obviously, to the success of this state and to the well-being of this state. And I'm probably a bit biased with this because I worked with young people for so very long, and I've seen some of the situations that they have had to overcome, and I truly admire them for that. So we need to provide them all the assistance we possibly can to make sure that once they finish school, wherever that happens to be, that they have a skill set that is saleable and something they can earn a decent living with.
Thank you. Mr. Pappas.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to answer the minimum wage question since I ran out of time, just so you'll know my position. I am not opposed to looking at raising the minimum wage. Since we have a minimum wage, it cannot be ignored, and it needs to be looked at and adjusted accordingly from time to time. So not opposed to looking at it. I feel I have one unique aspect that I can bring to the legislature that not most people can do, and that is my background in design. There's not any architects in the legislature, and there's few engineers and construction folks in the legislature. And so I feel that my background in my profession and what I do is important. We spend a lot of money in the state building infrastructure, whether it be schools or highways or lots of infrastructure. And I can bring that unique perspective because I design schools, I design a lot of those facilities, and have sat on the School Facilities Commission as a commissioner, president of the State Board of Architects. I've had that background about the construction and design industries. So I think that I can be a voice for my colleagues and my peers in the legislature, where not too many other folks in the legislature have that background. So I'm really thinking that the experience that my life has given me has prepared me for this very important task, and that's the task of serving the people of Wyoming in the state legislature.
Thank you. Well, so before we take about a 10-minute break to reset the dais, I just want to give just a minute to give the audience a chance to show their appreciation to each of you for your time, your candidacy, and your sharing of your own ideas. So thank you so much.
I guess you are. Yeah, real good points.
Organization that takes we don't endorse any candidates. We want the voters to win in this. We want people to be informed. We want them to vote. We want them to participate. We want them to call you. We want them to be a part of the process. We have a wonderful country, and this is our process. And we want more people to participate in this, and so that's why we're using technology, so that we're live streaming this, so that some people can participate at home. And these forums are important for that aspect, so that people can hear you, as well as we have our website. We have the questions that we've sent you, and we really appreciate you submitting your written answers for that. And they will be posted and on our website, which is up on the screen, but it's www.lwv.org, and all the this debate and others will be listed there. I want you to if you haven't submitted your questions, please get them to Sue Risky, who's been in contact with you, and that's why you're here. You have her email, so please get them to her by this Friday, October 3rd. We are also, you'll start seeing publicity now for our gubernatorial forum and superintendent public instruction. That will be October 23rd. And at 5:30 in this room. So please join us for that. It was a lively event when we had it before, and we look forward to hearing more from our elected officials. And I'd also like to I want to remind you, please be thinking of questions now and write them out. And we probably should have time to answer a few questions from the audience at the end. And we really appreciate your thinking about what maybe you're interested in. I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Jan Cartwright. And I don't think I introduced myself because sorry about that. I'm Lindy Kirkbride. I should have done that at the very, very beginning. And I've been a lifelong League of Women Voter member as I support its mission. And Jan is the executive director of the Wyoming Primary Care Association, which supports all of Wyoming to be a healthier place to live. So I'm going to turn it over to Jan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. Good evening, everyone. As I said before, all the candidates that were running for seats in Laramie County were invited to tonight's forum. And the League does regret that the scheduling didn't work for some candidates who weren't able to be here. But I am pleased to be joined by these 4 candidates in the second round. And I just want to give you the lay of the land. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves and why you're running for a seat in the Wyoming legislature. You will then be asked a series of questions that were provided for you beforehand. We're going to do that randomly. And then if there's time, we would like to ask a couple of questions that come from the audience tonight. And then finally, we'll do 2-minute closing for each of you at the end of the forum. So with that said, I would like to start with Representative Eklund for your 2-minute opening.
Thank you. My name's John Eklund, and I am the House Representative of District 10. It is the eastern part of Laramie County, and I'm in my 4th year of that, in my 2nd term, and this is the 3rd term I'm running for. I come from a ranching family. We've ranched and farmed in eastern Laramie County all of my life. My wife and I have continued that. We have 3 grown daughters, 7 grandchildren, and a lot of the reason that I run for this office is because of my family and in hopes of keeping Wyoming the best state in the union and a good place to raise a family with good opportunities for children as well as grandchildren as they come along. Farming and ranching and running a business like that has prepared me very well for legislature. It's just a constant, steady problem-solving ordeal every day it seems like every day we get up, there are challenges, and problem-solving is something that I've become accustomed to, and legislators have to deal with that constantly too. And some of these are big and complex problems, and it's been good to be a part of that, and I'd like to do it for a couple more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, same question.
Hello.
Or opening
Thank you.
question.
Thank you for the opportunity, and congratulations to the League of Women Voters for having the courage to take on the task of bringing us here. My name is Galen Wright. I'm running for House District 10. And just a little bit of our background, or my background, we brought 6 kids up here in Wyoming. In 2005, I was selected to be Law Enforcement Officer of the Year by the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I was in the military from 1974 until I retired in 1995. I ended my tour here in Wyoming. We initially moved here to Wyoming in 1992. I served 21 years in the Air Force, and then I joined the Wyoming State Patrol. State Patrol, while on the State Patrol, I believe I initiated and became an embedded member of the community by establishing a bike riding helmet program, whereas I collected donations and provided helmets to nearly every kid that went to Afler Baugh Elementary School. I give safety talks. I give seatbelt talks. I talk about commercial vehicle safety and the mechanics of commercial vehicles, informing them, the local people, of what they're doing and what they're doing that works and what they're doing that doesn't work. I worked at the Attention Home as a counselor. I want to speak for people. I understand that hearing and listening are two different things, and I believe my ability to do both will be an asset as if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to be a member of the Wyoming legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Throne, your 2-minute opening.
Thank you, Ms. Cartwright, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I understand that my opponent, Mr. Rajeski, cannot be here tonight due to health reasons, and I certainly want to wish him a speedy recovery. I am a native of Wyoming. I was raised by rancher parents in Campbell County, granddaughter of homesteaders. My Wyoming roots are deep. I left Wyoming to attend college, law school, and to do mission work overseas, and spent a couple of years practicing law in Denver. But when it came time to settle down as an adult, and I was kind of late becoming an adult, I might add, but when it came time to settle down as an adult, I moved to Cheyenne, met my husband, and we have raised, or in the process of raising, 3 children, 3 boys who've attended Laramie County schools, and he's at a Cary football game right now, so I may occasionally check the score. But as a parent with kids in K-12, I bring a unique perspective to the legislature. There are not many parents with children in the school system, and even fewer mothers with children in the school system. And also I have a 20-year history of being a practicing attorney in energy and environmental issues, which of course are very important to our state, and that's another perspective I bring. And so the reason I'm running again is that I think it's important that we continue to focus on what matters to Wyoming and not get caught up in the nasty partisanship that's taken over our nation's capital, and I have a proven record of being able to work with my colleagues.
Thank you. Representative Filer, your 2-minute opening, please.
Well, first I want to thank the League of Women Voters. This is wonderful to get more of our views and get people to know us a little bit better. A little bit about myself. I was born right here at F.E. Warren Air Force Base back in 1980. My dad was a military veteran. For 26 years he served, 2 in the Army and 24 in the Air Force. He actually retired a chief down in NORAD in Colorado Springs. With that, we've lived quite a few places. I've lived in Alaska, Colorado, Wyoming, Arizona, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and England. So I've been around a little bit, being a military brat. But everything still brought us back home here in Wyoming. I really enjoy this state. I love raising my family here. I got 3 beautiful daughters. God bless my soul there. We also own a large child care facility here in the state of Wyoming. It's about an 8,000 square foot facility. We help out with about 120 different children. We employ about 27 folks. Another thing, work for Union Pacific Railroad. I've been there for about 11 years. I'm also a member of our Wyoming Air National Guard. Been serving there now. I think I have a total of a little over 8 years of service with the Air National Guard. But another reason why I'm running, when I first ran, I told all my constituents it wasn't about party. It had nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. It was about actually having representation in our district. What we need in our district and all the districts in Wyoming is a bipartisan work up in the legislature. We have to work together. We have to compromise in order to get things done. We can't toe a party line. We can't bring Washington-style politics here to Wyoming. And there's a lot of folks that would like to do that. What that does is it creates gridlock in our legislature. Last thing we need to do is create any more gridlock that there may be. So that's another reason why I'm running is we've got to have that bipartisanship. I've proven it in my first 2 years with the legislation I passed. I made sure I had both Democrats and Republicans on all my legislation, and we've done very well working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Wright, and the question is, political office is public service. What local or state organizations have you served? In what capacity, and how will the experiences in these organizations help you in elected office?
Well, I think that public service, it covers a lot of different things. I served in the Air Force for 21 years. The last 3 of those years was in Wyoming. I participated in many different programs that involved the Air Force and involved the community. Like I said earlier, I worked at the Attention Home. I've also worked at a call center for where women go when they can't live at home anymore because of problems with their spouses. I've worked at that call center. I worked at an emergency service line whereas I was the actual one that people were calling that were thinking about committing suicide. So I did that because I wanted to be a part of the community. I felt like I could be an effective part of the community, and I believe that communication is one of my strong suits. I believe that I've also served on the State Patrol, and like I said earlier, I did safety talks. I did that people would call me, and I would go out and give winter driving safety because I drive. That's what I did for a living. I'd go out and do the truck inspections because the trucks are on the highways, and by making sure that they are safely operated and mechanically fit, then that progress is towards more safe highways. I believe that, and that's pretty much that.
Representative Throne, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine. I first went to work in the Attorney General's office for 7 years when I moved back to Wyoming, and so that was my first involvement in public service in Wyoming. And as the attorney for the Air Quality Division, I became intimately familiar with the Clean Air Act and the Wyoming Environmental Quality Act, and actually worked on legislation during my years in the AG's office involving the Environmental Quality Act, and that really has been beneficial to me as a legislator. I sort of was able to hit the ground running. In addition, I've been a trustee for the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation, which is an educational foundation for attorneys who practice natural resources law. So I have regional contacts to help me understand a lot of the really important energy and environmental issues that we face every day in the state of Wyoming. And then finally, right now I am part of what's called the Parent Advisory Committee for Laramie County School District number 1. Representatives from all the schools in the district, and we meet on a monthly basis to advise the school board on education issues, and that has also been invaluable to me as a parent and a legislator to understand what the parents in Laramie County are thinking about what's happening in our schools.
Thank you. Representative Filer.
Thank you. Well, I've been involved in quite a few organizations. A lot of them, mainly my unions, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, also United Transportation Union. I get pretty involved with those organizations, which we do a lot more other things than just labor issues. We actually go out into our communities, try to help people. Anybody that needs food, clothing, things like that, do food drives. We try to get more involved in helping our communities. But there's another one, another organization I'm a part of now. It's the Employment Task Force for People with Developmental Disabilities here in Wyoming, which came about from legislation from this last budget session. And what it does is it allows for us to come together and actually help folks that have developmental disabilities actually find community integrated and competitive employment in our communities. For the longest time, our state has been pushing people with developmental disabilities to the side, and we kind of close the door, turn the key, and we don't want to hear about it. We'll fund it, but we don't want to hear about it. Well, now it's time to actually have where they have those same rights that we do to work in our communities. This is a huge process and a huge policy change we've done in Wyoming, and I want to, I'm very proud to be part of this task force, and it was actually legislation that I did pass, and it's going to be great, and it's going to help save the state money, and it's going to give people a better quality of life. But other organizations would be just my own personal as far as owning my own business. We take care of 120 children. My wife's child care center has a preschool system that we have about 18 to 20 kids go into kindergarten every year, and not one of them gets under a 69 score on their kindergarten readiness test out of 72. So we're really active in our community with our kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Eklund, same question.
Thank you. As far as political experience previous to legislature, I was elected to a supervisory position for the Conservation District for 2 terms, and that was 8 years. It doesn't sound very political, but if you've ever gotten into conservation issues, you can just imagine the controversy we got into. I found while I was there that I could be very helpful in establishing policy and developing consensus among people, which I consider to be an important leadership tool. Probably as much as anything, my community activities have prepared me for legislature. It's a lot the same way, trying to develop consensus amongst people that have a variety of different ideas. But my involvement in the community was probably as valuable as anything in preparing me for my job in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will start with Representative Throne. What do you feel is the most important issue facing the state of Wyoming, and how would you address it?
You know, it's always hard to highlight one issue. But to me, the sort of overarching issue we face today as a legislature and as a state is how do we use the wealth that Wyoming has today to really prepare a sustainable future for Wyoming going forward. I am running for the legislature again in large part because I feel like we need to have strong voices talking about how we plan for our future in Wyoming. And it does take more than a year or two to learn about our fiscal process. The Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account, the rainy day account, is an important fund, but we never actually discuss as a legislature what we're doing with all this money we're collecting at the state level. We have incredible needs in this state, and we need to have a discussion about spending, saving, and investing, an open discussion that highlights for the public all the revenue we have and how we best use that money for Wyoming. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to run again for the legislature, to be able to raise these questions and to at least force a debate on the issue.
Thank you. Representative Filer?
Thank you. You know, and again, it's hard to pinpoint just one issue, but if we got to pinpoint one, the one I would actually like to focus on is education with job growth. Right now, if we look at, we want to diversify our economy and things like that, we want to bring in good paying jobs, good businesses, but the one thing that they actually look for is an educated workforce to work those jobs. We could build as much infrastructure, we can give as many tax breaks as possible, but if we don't have the workforce that's educated enough for those jobs to come here, they're not going to come here. This is something that we have to tie both of those together with our education and the jobs and the folks that want to come to our state. And we have this problem in Wyoming where we just want to focus on one sector of energy. Well, there's so many different other things that could open the doors for Wyoming. And our children want those doors to open. They want to be educated. They want those jobs. But right now we've created a society where we educate our children. We educate them well. But then they move on to other states. They move on to other employment in other areas. So we need to find that balance and work those two together to actually have them work together hand in hand, so that way we have a good educated workforce for good companies to come here to pay livable wages and good benefit packages, so that we don't have so many folks struggling and also our children moving out of our state.
Thank you. Representative Eklund.
Thank you. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult thing to single it down. When you're in session, it's usually the bill that you're studying that's going to be voted on pretty soon. It's usually specifically that. There are several general things that I can think about. Economic development is something we've done very well at, so I don't know if that would be my focus. Healthcare is another big issue and very complex one. I'm gonna stick with Lee's idea that education is something that we need to work on. If we're going to keep our kids here, they need to be well educated, and I'm not convinced that the education is as good as it should be. Earlier in the previous forum, they discussed vocational education as being something that's being removed from Wyoming schools. That's a bad plan. Vocational people don't have the same opportunities with scholarship or anything else. I would like to see us work on not only having the highest priced education on the planet, probably, but to have the best education too. We have tremendous opportunity to be the education leader of the world, and we should capitalize on that whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, same question.
Well, I'd say that the singular most important issue is where 90% of things are funded from, and that's revenues. So where do most of our revenues come from? From our energy resources. We have to have a balanced plan that addresses security of supply, energy efficiency, and renewable energy sources. So I mean that's that money that energy brings in funds everything else. So that's got to be at the top of the scale. Now, once that's dispersed, then we can talk about we talk about education. Education is imperative so that we can ensure that our futures and our children's futures are safe and secure. It's also imperative so that the families are secure in the way that they live, in the way that they choose to grow within the state of Wyoming. So I believe that the energy resources that allow everything else to grow is most important, with education and everything that comes along right after that. They're funded by those energy resources. So, and that's why I say that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Representative Filer, we will start with you. The legislature uses the budget and statutes to manage executive agency programs. Do you support this intervention? One example is a budget footnote to restrict the ability of the State Board of Education to review science standards. Would you support repeal of that footnote?
Well, the first part of that question, would I support? We do oversee every department. We do fund every department. They come to us with a budget, what they need to progress forward in their ideas. But we should not have to micromanage as a legislature. We have department heads. We have good people working in those jobs, and we should not take that power away from them, especially the State Board of Education with its science standards. The State Board of Education is there to provide those standards to our children and to the school boards, and then they decide the curriculum from on there. So would I support repealing that? Absolutely. To actually take something away from our children that could be highly educational for them is something wrong. We talk about education in Wyoming all the time. We want our kids to be the best educated. Well, why are we taking away one tool or defunding one tool for them to learn? So, I know there's a lot of different reasons why the science standards, maybe it's your belief here and their belief there, but it's a theory. It teaches children how to actually check theories, how to work up to a progress, how it happens. It actually teaches those children. So I do not agree with the legislature micromanaging, and no, we shouldn't be passing budget footnotes that take away the next generation science standards.
Thank you. Representative Eklund, same question.
We overlook the budget and look through it in a variety of different ways. This has been policy to be able to fit legislation right into the budget. So I don't know. It would take a policy change to keep from having that happen. Footnotes in the budget that are actually in and of themselves bills. As far as the science standard that was put into that footnote, the debate was that the science standards were being limited to new generation science theories, and there was a lot of concern with people. I don't know. The debate, when I listened to it, was pretty clear that there were problems in the way the Common Core was coming across with some of their issues. So I probably wouldn't have a problem with repealing it, but we still need to look at all science, not just theories. We've got to look at solid science that is, and not just new stuff that might be.
Mr. Wright?
I would definitely vote to repeal that footnote. These kids go to high school, and once they go to college, if they don't have science background, then they start behind. Let's not handicap them or hamstring them from the beginning. I also don't believe that the legislator actually manages executive agency programs. They fund the executive agency programs. Those agencies manage themselves. They have directors that are appointed to manage the programs. Now, the part that the legislature has is by funding the programs based on what the directors have asked for and what the directors stipulate that they're going to do, and what they need is funding for specific areas within their own programs. So no, the legislator doesn't manage executive agencies or executive agency programs. They fund those programs, and yes, I would vote to repeal the footnote.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Representative Thrum.
Thank you, Ms. Cartwright. To answer the end of that question first, yes, I would move immediately, as soon as possible, to repeal the budget footnote, forcing the state board to stop its work in mid-tracks. Because right now we have science standards that even by conservative think tanks are ranked an F. And so we have F science standards, and we stop the state board in midstream from doing its work. That was just ridiculous. I don't have the words to describe how frustrated I am as a parent by the action of the legislature on the science standards. But getting back to the basics of the question, it's separation of powers. The legislature writes the laws, the legislature creates the agencies, and we grant them authority. We also have the power to appropriate money, the sole power to appropriate money. So, but when we grant a legislature authority, we have to let them, when we grant an agency authority, we have to let them do their job. We cannot micromanage as a legislature with budget footnotes or any other process. And what we did with the state board was wrong. We gave them a job, and then we didn't let them do their job, even though they're the experts, they had a process, and they were following their process, and we stopped them in midstream, and that is not an appropriate role for the legislature.
Thank you. Representative Eklund, we'll start with you. What role should the legislature play in creating more high-paying jobs in Wyoming?
Well, that again starts, we've done fairly well with some economic development plans. We're not just an energy state. We brought some other things to the state, especially this region. Along with that comes education. I think if those jobs are available and our students are not educated well enough to be hired by the companies, then we really lose out. We develop the economic structure to keep our kids here, and then we haven't educated them well enough to assume the leadership in those jobs. But the economic development can be done by a variety of ways, incentivizing business and tax breaks, looking for ways of getting them here. And selling Wyoming as a good place to do business.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, same question.
Legislature's role in creating more jobs with higher pay in Wyoming is ensuring we have an educated workforce, and ensuring that we have an attractive tax base, insurance that we have maintenance in the infrastructure that will be acceptable to those companies that can move here and pay more than the minimum wage and pay an actual living wage. Strong schools with good math and science curriculums continuously, and ensure that they know that we focus on strong family structures here in the state of Wyoming.
Thank you. Representative Throne.
There's a limited role for government in economic development. We can't go out and fund companies. We can't create jobs. We're not China. But the proper role for government is first and foremost to make sure that we have the infrastructure and the strong communities in place to support business and business development. And frankly, we haven't been doing that lately in the Wyoming legislature. Amassing huge amounts of money at the state level does not support economic development at the local level. The educated workforce is critical. A strong education system with a well-trained workforce is a huge driver for economic development. People want to move where the schools are good. They want to raise their families in a state that has a strong education system, and that will attract people to Wyoming. But we also, in Wyoming, I think we've fallen short with supporting technical education, vocational education, those training opportunities for the non-college bound folks. Finally, there is a proper role for incentives, business-ready to community grants, and we just always have to make sure that those incentives actually achieve the desired goal and that we're being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Filer.
Thank you. Well, first, our role is, I believe, is the legislature is the foundation building of the infrastructure of the tax base for these companies that want to come here. One thing we also got to look at right now is as far as our tax structures for businesses in Wyoming, we are one of the business-friendliest states in the United States. I think we're actually ranked in the top 5. So we already talked about that. So I believe the tax part of that's already taken care of. The foundation, other part of the foundation we need is the infrastructure. We need the roads, we need the curb and gutter, we need the water, the sewer, the electrical, we need all the fiber optics, the internet, everything that companies need to actually come here and build. If I was a big corporation wanted to move to Wyoming and I had to come here and I had to build roads just to get to my plant, I might look somewhere else where they've already built that infrastructure, because that's a lot of money out of my bottom line. But the educated workforce, just like everybody has said, we need to work on an educated workforce. Once we have that, that's the biggest piece of our foundation. We have an educated workforce, companies will look at us. They look at our communities. How are they educated? How are their schools? Where are they ranked at? What's their standards? These are all things big companies look at. If we had Google looking at Wyoming right now, do you think they'd come here or Colorado? Let's look at that. We have to compete with these states, and we've been competing with that Front Range for a long time. We have the means to be better. Let's build that foundation.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, next question. What are the proper relationships and responsibilities among the legislature, the energy industry, and the University of Wyoming?
Well, first of all, we don't want to micromanage. There's a board of trustees with the university, and trustees means trust. So we have to trust them to do what they're appointed to do until they don't do it. Up until that point, they have to be trusted to do their jobs. The energy industry is large enough to take care of itself. No micromanaging. The Board of Trustees are good. University of Wyoming must have the freedom to pursue a marketplace of original ideas, because the students from the University of Wyoming, while they're there, and once they leave, they will be competing on the international market. So, to put it in a nutshell, no micromanaging by the legislative body. The Board of Trustees, they have a job to do. The energy companies are large enough to take care of themselves. Okay, on occasion we have to get DEQ to assist with management of some of their programs. But as long as they do what they're supposed to be doing, then we leave them alone.
Okay, thank you, Representative Throne.
The University of Wyoming is the only four-year institution we have in the state, as everybody here knows, and that gives it a very special role in our state. Most of our students who graduate from Wyoming high schools attend the university. It needs to be a top-flight university, and it needs to be allowed to be a university, to be a marketplace of ideas, as Mr. Wright said. And so that being said, academic freedom and the independence of professors to be able to do the research they want to do is critical. We spend a lot of money on the university. And if the legislature tries to interfere politically or tries to micromanage or question choices of art or what professors are doing for research from our perch in Cheyenne, we will have a substandard university. We will be spending money for a top-flight university, and we will end up with a substandard university. I certainly applaud the energy industry's willingness to donate to our university, but it doesn't mean they control the university. Certainly we have to be a leader in energy research, energy policy, environmental and natural resource issues. That's what we do in Wyoming, and I applaud the energy industry for supporting that.
Thank you. Representative Filer.
Thank you. This is a pretty good question. But as far as, the relationship and responsibilities of legislature, energy, and our university, our responsibilities of legislature is, I want to ditto everything Representative Throne had said, but we can't micromanage what they do and the innovation that they have and the ways they want to move forward. Because we're only looking at one industry here. We're looking at energy. Well, what about the other sources that we have in this state as far as look at tourism? It's our second largest industry in the state of Wyoming. Agriculture. These are other things that the university can, reach out and do better on. Should we just focus strictly on energy? No, I think we're holding our university to a one small of the picture of this world. I mean, we need this to be open where everybody comes here and they can learn about many different things. And we got to allow our professors to bring in those ideas and those new ideas for these children to learn. I mean, I'm total supportive of our university. It's the best university in the nation, if you ask me. Go Pokes. But we got as a legislature, we should back out of it a little bit and let those board of trustees do what they're doing. Let those professors do the best job they can. And if we start closing that and making it only energy school, we're focusing strictly on energy, we're losing out on a lot of other professors that might want to come here and bring those good ideas to make our state move forward.
Okay, thank you. Representative Eklund.
It is a good question, and I'm kind of surprised that energy is the only one brought into it, because I view the whole of the process to be a partnership. The legislature has a part, the state of Wyoming, including the legislature, has a part in that. The university itself, of course, does, and then the private sector is a major driver in what happens. The legislature was recently involved in passing legislation to help the University of Wyoming, the engineering college, become a Tier 1 college, and that doesn't happen by itself. The university itself was probably the main driver, I would say. But the legislature got involved. We had to do some funding and upgrading buildings and a variety of things that come with that. It's quite a partnership. I'm thankful for the private sector for coming along and the state not having to fund the whole thing. And I'm with Lee. It's the best buy in the nation. You can't beat the University of Wyoming, especially for students here, but it's a good education, and it's relatively inexpensive. Anyone who wants to go to college in Wyoming can go. We've got the Hathaway Scholarship. It's a great deal.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Throne, following elections, people who supported candidates who lost can feel disenfranchised. If you win your election, would you reach out to those who did not support you? Why or why not?
Of course I'd reach out to them, and I have been reaching out to them. Certainly as part of my door-to-door campaign, I try to knock on every door, and just recently I've run into people who tell me that they're felons and they can't vote, and I tell them I still represent them, and so they should feel free to ask me questions. I run into people who aren't registered to vote. I encourage them to register, and I tell them that I will still represent them even if they don't vote. And I tell the people who kind of slam the door in my face that I'm still their representative and they should feel like they can reach out to me. And certainly I will continue to reach out to everyone in House District 11 if I'm privileged to be reelected. It's been an honor to serve them, and you serve the whole district, not just the people who voted for you.
Thank you. Representative Filer, same question.
Absolutely, I feel even after my first election, after I won, that I did reach out to everybody in my district. As a matter of fact, I stay very involved in my district and in my community. And there's a lot of folks that we may not be on the same page, but you know what, I still represent them, and I still go to them and ask them what their concerns are, and maybe change the way I legislate a little bit that way. Because I know I might not be able to get, their total happiness, but I won't get everybody's total happiness either. And it's a way that we all work together, and we're not going to make everybody happy, but I do reach out. I will never disenfranchise anybody from my district. My door is always open, my phone is always on, and my email is always working. There's no reason why anybody at any time cannot get a hold of me, and I let that be known in my district. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Representative Eklund.
Yeah, my answer would be the same. You're elected to serve the whole district. It's everybody in it. People that voted, people that didn't vote, Republicans, Democrats, right wing, left wing. It doesn't matter. You're there to represent all of them. You can't please them all of the time, but you can listen to their concerns, and you can be involved in a process with them that I think they should feel like they're a part of that process. And it's not just your own district. A lot of when we make decisions, they're generally decisions based on what's best for Wyoming, and sometimes it isn't just your district that's involved. So I would step further than that, and I'm thankful to be in Wyoming where we don't have gridlock going on. We're able to function as a government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
I was recently, on my walkabouts, I was recently asked a question by a gentleman that I couldn't find the answer to. I didn't know the answer to. I'm sure that many people couldn't answer that question. It was about some of these social services that we have available for people. And I told him, I said, I have no idea how to answer that question. And we ended our conversation, and I said to myself, I know that I did not earn that gentleman's vote, but I feel obligated to find the answer. And I came up with an idea later on. I said, how do you teach ambition? So I went back and talked to him, and I said, there's no answer to that question. We need to find out how to teach ambition. So that is how I would treat any situation of anyone that either voted for me or doesn't vote for me. They are citizens of Wyoming. They are citizens of the United States. Their voices should be heard. There's something that's called the First Amendment right, freedom of speech. So why wouldn't I, as a legislator, be willing to talk to everyone? There's no way that I couldn't do that. I would absolutely have to talk to everyone, and be more than willing and happy to talk to everyone, whether they vote for me or not. Thank you.
So we have a question from the audience, and I think if somebody wanted to send another one up, we have time for one more. This one says, how should the legislature support health care, including our uninsured neighbors across the state? And we are going to begin with Representative Filer.
Well, to me, that's a very simple question, and we need to expand Medicaid. Medicaid dollars are flowing out of this state through our tax or our federal tax system whenever we get a paycheck, and that money is going into another pot and going to other states to help people that are uninsured. Right now we're losing roughly $200 million a year in our healthcare system. Our hospitals are hurting. As a matter of fact, our hospital right here in Cheyenne is losing about $1 million a month, $12 million a year. I mean, this is one way we could take care of that shortfall. We're also talking about 18,000 working citizens here in the state of Wyoming. We're talking about 18,000 people that are going to get healthier if we have this. And when we talk about employment and our economic drive in this state, not only do we need educated workforce, but we need a healthy workforce. And that's 18,000 people that can get the care that they need in order to go to work. We're talking this is so much more than just health care. That Medicaid expansion with those 18,000 people, we bring that money, our tax dollars, back to our state to help our state, actually turns into hundreds of millions of dollars in our local economies. And we're talking about making our local economies better, bringing in more jobs. This is one way of doing it. And we're paying a tax that we're not receiving back here in the state of Wyoming. We need to expand Medicaid.
Thank you. Representative Eklund.
We've had small discussions on the expansion of Medicaid, and I would like to see our Health and Labor Committee come up with a plan that we can debate in a fairly extensive way the whole Medicaid problem. It's a complex one. Right now we've got regular Medicaid that we're struggling to fund ourselves, and then there's Medicaid expansion. And I would like to see a plan that helps people who need the medical assistance and get them funded, but I don't want to develop another layer of dependency by any of our citizens. And I think there has to be a compromise on this instead of just, I agree, we're paying for it already in taxes, we're paying for it in that or insurance, but I think we have to have a plan to help those people, get them back on their feet, and then get them off of it, and not just create another whole group of people depending on the government for their health care. So I would love to see that debate happen along an extended debate and a well-researched bill coming out of our health committee.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, same question.
When we talk about expanding Medicare, we absolutely have to do that because there are people that are actually suffering that actually need it, and I'm not so comfortable in my situation that I don't have empathy for those people. But I'd like to take it a step further. At some point in time, someone within government should have looked and seen this train coming with all these people that are going to be off of the roles of health care. And instead, it's kind of like, surprise, we got a bunch of people that are off of health care. Well, it shouldn't have been that way. Someone has to pay attention to that kind of situation. So once we've taken care of that, then the next step is to find out how they got into that situation, because that didn't happen overnight either. Okay, it may be cyclical. So once we find out how that happens, then we identify that, and we don't just identify it on paper. We identify it to the people that are involved in that situation and tell them and show them, this is why you're in that situation, this is how you can break the cycle of that situation, and this is how you can get out of it. And just like John said, I mean, we can help people, we can extend that to they can be self-sufficient, and we don't necessarily have to foster that program. We can actually make it, that's something that we can actually make better. But I do say, but we have to take care of those people right now.
Okay, thank you. Representative Throne.
Thank you, Jan. And I have to just say right up front that I respectfully disagree strongly with my good colleague from House District 10. We brought bills to the legislature. Labor Health spent a lot of time, and I'm on Labor Health, last year, on Medicaid expansion, and the legislature refused to consider those bills. And while health care is an extremely complex topic, The question of whether or not to expand Medicaid is not complicated. It was absolutely ridiculous that the state of Wyoming did not take our federal tax dollars to provide health care for over 17,000 working Wyoming citizens. They are already dependent on somebody for their health care. They're dependent on our hospitals. And our failure to expand Medicaid means we are losing money every day. We are losing millions. The federal government provided full coverage of Medicaid expansion for the first 5 years. That's what our Wyoming citizens were entitled to, and we turned it down. And the bottom line is we are paying more state dollars, precious state health care dollars, to insure fewer people. And we're also running the risk that as a county, we will end up paying taxes to cover the uncompensated care that our county hospital suffers every year. Thank you.
Thank you. In this situation, I'd like to give anybody a chance for a 30-second rebuttal, if anybody would like to take that opportunity.
I'm going to, I don't believe there was a committee bill that came to the House floor. I don't remember the Senate didn't get one.
Is your mic on, Representative Eklund?
Sorry. Anyway, we discussed it somewhat, but as far as having a committee bill, I don't remember one coming in bits and pieces maybe, but not as a bill coming from the labor, health and labor.
Representative Throne.
We had two committee bills. One went to the Senate, one went to the House. They failed introduction, but they were committee bills. And then Senator Rothfuss also had a bill that was that succeeded in being introduced on the Senate side, but it was never voted out. It was basically killed in Senate labor. So we had every opportunity last year to fully debate Medicaid expansion, and it was rejected because they failed introduction. But we spent a lot of time on it.
Okay. Thank you for that discussion. So we're going to begin with you, Representative Eklund. How would you support funding infrastructure maintenance, for example, highways construction? Would you support diverting funds from the non-statutory portion of the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund?
Yes. I would consider part of what we put into the savings account, as if it's being put into highways, is a fairly permanent savings account if we're fixing permanent infrastructure. Generally, we have done it through the general fund, and I think people were so tired of dealing with the fuel tax the year before that it was probably overlooked. I don't remember much discussion on using any of the extra savings we had last year, but I see it as a good use. Anything that's permanent is like a savings account, so I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wright, do you want me to give you the question again?
No. This is another situation that all of a sudden, poof, there's a $50 million shortfall in the highway funds. So we passed the tax, and I believe $70 million came into that, and it's going to be that should help out. Now, as far as ensuring that the highways are taken care of, because everyone uses the highways, not just folks that live here, but people that pass through the state. We want them to be safe. So if there's a way to take some of the interest from the rainy day fund, to limit some of the money from the rainy day fund for a specific period of time to supplement that highway fund, I think we should do that. I think that when we talk about rainy day, I'm not sure that that's ever been defined. So let's define it as a critical situation on getting our highways fixed. Let's define the rainy day as let's fix our highways so we don't have a rainy day there.
Thank you. Representative Throne.
Thank you. And I think the question was, would we support diverting the statutory amount, not the should be the statutory amount to the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. But in any event, right now we have a shortfall in our funding for highways, anywhere from, I don't know, $60 to $80 million annually just to maintain the highways as they are, and that's no money for improvements. So the fuel tax got us partway there, but we need to find other sources of revenue, and we have the revenue. We have the revenue to maintain our highways and to improve our highways, and there are a number of places we could look. We could increase the cap on the mineral. Right now, certain money flows to the highway department, and we could allow more mineral severance tax money to flow directly to the highway department. We could use the income from the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund for highways. We could use portions of the LSRA, or we could stop the statutory amount going to the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund and invest in our highways. I've had the opportunity to drive between Douglas and Gillette twice in the last month, and I have to say both times I thought I was taking my life into my hands, and we've had a number of fatalities on that road. That part of the state generates most of the income that goes into our Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, and I think we have an obligation to provide safe roads.
Thank you. Representative Filer.
Thank you. There's one thing with our highways and investing in that infrastructure. One, I'm tired of Band-Aids, and I know a lot of my constituents and a lot of people in Wyoming are tired of the Band-Aids. I was one of those that was totally against the fuel tax because it provided a Band-Aid. It did not fix our problem. We look at all these different accounts, as Representative Throne said. You have all these different accounts where we can raise the cap on what goes in permanent amount. For trust fund, that actually goes to the highway department. There's so many different ways that we can actually fund this, and the money is already there. But what we got to do as a legislature is if we look at that infrastructure and we want to make it good, that's part of the reason why businesses that want to come here, that's part of the reason why our tourism is so good. People want to drive on good roads. We need to have a really good conversation about this. The fuel tax didn't go far enough. I mean, they were at $175 million shortfall per year before the fuel tax. Now we're at about between, like Representative Throne said, close to $80 million still a year in a shortfall in their current state. Maybe we need to look at actually investing in this infrastructure, getting it good, and making it the best there is in the United States, and then we should have looked at a fuel tax on maintaining something that's good. If I buy a brand new vehicle, it's a lot easier to maintain, and it lasts a lot longer than an older vehicle just putting Band-Aids on it. Finally, you get tired of putting Band-Aids, and you got to buy a new truck. So I think we need to start really having a strong conversation about our infrastructure here in this state.
Thank you. Representative Eklund. Oh, I'm sorry, I started with you. Sorry. So we'll start now with Mr. Wright. What can be done by the legislature to confront wage disparity in the state of Wyoming?
What could be done by the legislature? I don't think that the legislator has a say in that. I think that that actually would be overstepping into private industry's business. So do we want to, the question to me is, do we want to insert government into private industry? And I say no to that. There have to be other alternatives. The businesses within the state need to be accountable to themselves and to the people that work for them to make sure that the pay that they receive is equitable for the service that they provide. In addition to that, the pay that they receive should be based on the job that you do, not who you are or whether you're male or female. And when we actually determine pay based on minimum wage, then we need to find out, and we need to go back and find out why is there a minimum wage. And in some cases, the minimum wage is because if there wasn't a minimum wage, then they pay them even less. And restaurant workers, I mean, you just ask a waitress or a waiter at a restaurant. So I think that that's the legislature, the government can't interfere with private industry in that way.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Throne.
Thank you. I'm going to assume that at least in part, that's a question about the appalling gender wage gap we have in Wyoming. Wyoming has the worst gender wage gap in the country. A woman in Wyoming makes, 63, 64 cents for every dollar that a man makes. And that is just really not acceptable. You can't attract business and jobs and people to Wyoming when you're underpaying half of the population. And so what do we do about this? I think we have to look at training programs that encourage women to go into the jobs that make more money in Wyoming. Certainly at the coal mines you will find a lot of women earning those high salaries, driving heavy equipment. When I was in law school, we celebrated something called Myra Bradwell Day. That was to Myra Bradwell Day. Anyway, to honor a woman who was denied admission to the bar because she was told that women weren't suited for the legal profession. So we have to get away from this idea that women are not suited for the good-paying jobs in the energy industry and other sectors of the economy, and make sure they get the training and that we have the child care support in place so they can take advantage of those high-paying jobs.
Okay. Representative Filer.
Well, thanks for this wonderful question also. And I'm going to use my own personal life experience on what I believe in this. This is a definite problem here in Wyoming. I work for the military, and I also work on the Union Pacific Railroad. In the military, I work along the side of these women airmen that are just as good as me, if not better in some areas. But guess what? We get paid the same because we get paid for a job that we're all doing. There's no reason why that a woman should have to get paid any less because she's a woman doing the same job as a man. Same thing on the railroad. I work right along the side of women that do the same job as me. They do it just as good as me and sometimes even better. We should not... okay. All the time. But the thing is, when we look at a job, we look at a profession, we get paid for that job. There should be no discriminating of, well, since you're a woman, you deserve a little less because the man may be the breadwinner. And I know we've had that mentality. I remember when I was younger, the man was always the one that brought home the bread and took care of his family. Well, guess what? We're in a two-income society now, and it takes both parents to raise our children, raise our households, and be involved in our community. It takes both. And you know what? It's an equal partnership between men and women, and we need to figure out that balance.
Thank you. Representative Eklund.
I'm a dad of three girls, so I don't like the idea of my daughter's training and getting through a college education and then not getting equal pay with a man that's doing the same job. I think I'd have that. I hope I would have that same philosophy if I'd had three sons. But I think that it's a culture. Apparently in Wyoming, it could be in part the jobs that we offer. But if the studies have been done that compare what women get paid as compared to men doing the same job, and they show up, the men are making more than it's wrong. It's a culture that needs to be changed within the industry, and I'm not sure what legislature can do about that. It's probably something we can't legislate. It's a morality issue.
Thank you. Representative Throne, I think we'll start with you for a 2-minute closing.
It's that time.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and making our views available to the public. I think the more we can inform the voters, the better off we all are. And thank you to the folks up here who have taken the risk to put their names on the ballot for the fall election. I can't tell you how much I enjoy serving in the legislature. I am completing my fourth term, and I have worked hard in the legislature to study issues, to build relationships, and to always just do what makes sense for Wyoming. I was raised by a Wyoming ranch woman, as I said in my opening, and about the worst thing she could say about somebody was, they don't have any common sense. So I always remember that as a legislator and try and make decisions that would make my mother proud, frankly. But I've been successful in building coalitions to sponsor and pass 16 pieces of individual legislation during my time in the legislature that have been signed into law. But what we learn in the legislature is that what really matters is not what has our name on it or what gets into the paper, but that we work every day in the legislature to make the process go forward. It's a collective body, it's a collegial body, and in Wyoming we are blessed that we check our partisanship at the door, and I remain committed to pursuing the job in that way and to always doing what is in the best interests of Wyoming.
Thank you. Representative Filer.
Well, thank you for this 2 minutes, and thank you for this forum that you all have put on today. It was wonderful. A lot of different views have came out today. But a little bit about this, finishing my first term in the legislature, I have built some amazing relationships and friendships on both sides of the aisle. It's been a true blessing. To me, it's been a true blessing. To my daughters actually really adore it, and they're so involved now in their school and their school councils and things like that because they're getting more involved in this civic process. And this is a wonderful way of as far as a civic process, for our voters to know where we stand. But I want, especially the voters of my district and the voters of Wyoming, to understand there's three principles that I live by, and it actually came from an old coach from Notre Dame football years ago. And there's three things you do in life, and you will succeed, and you'll be great at what you do. And that's it. If you do the right thing, and you do it to the best of your ability, and treat people like how you want to be treated. That's how I treat everybody in my district, and that's how I want to treat everybody here. I will treat you the same way I want you to treat me, because I believe that those friendships in the legislature and being able to work together and get things done for the state of Wyoming comes from those three principles. And I believe most of us, if not all of us, have those qualities in that legislature. We just need to keep it there. And we need to keep that good balance that we have, and we need to work together. And I appreciate, like I said, this in the closing statements, and I appreciate these folks that are sitting up here with me, Representative Throne, Mr. Wright, Representative Eklund, great folks here, and thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Representative Eklund, your 2-minute closing.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I'm not usually outnumbered like this, but as you can see, we agree on an awful lot of things, and that's how the citizen legislature of Wyoming oftentimes works. Not all the time, but I feel confident that I can go to anybody's desk and discuss issues. There isn't the gridlock that I'm hearing of in Washington, D.C. happening in Wyoming legislature. It's been a real honor to serve there. I think that I bring to legislature a unique perspective. I'm a farmer and a rancher. I've been a student of agriculture all of my life. My district is very agricultural, and I believe I can represent that industry very well, not just in eastern Laramie County, but statewide. Agriculture is a large industry, and we don't have many of us in legislature that are well trained in the field of agriculture. Like I say, it's been an honor to be a part of a citizen legislature in Wyoming that works as well as it does. I believe that I can help that along with my problem-solving skills and my perspective on agriculture, as well as my ability to work towards consensus with other people, which may not sound like leadership, but I think we can get a lot more done that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, your 2-minute closing.
I've adopted a philosophy of good policy knows no party. I've adopted that. Also, a great man said, let me get this right. 2 of the most important days of your life. One of those days is the day you were born. The second is when you figure out why. So I think I figured it out. I've been a public servant since I was, I guess, am I a public servant when I'm a TV guy, delivery guy? Remember the TV guys? I was doing that. And then I picked up the paperboy job, and then I was a public servant at the grocery store, bagging groceries of course I was getting paid for that. And then I joined the military, and then I joined the State Patrol. And the things that I did while I was with the State Patrol and with the military, I always felt obligated to help citizens, to be a good citizen, to show our kids and teach our kids to be good citizens. And so the first most important day is the day that you're born, and the second day is when you figure out why. And I believe that the why for me is to be a public servant. I will communicate with everyone. I'll work as hard as I can to make sure that the citizens of Wyoming, and more specifically District 10, have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. This concludes this round of the candidate debates. Let's thank the candidates for being here tonight.